On July 19, 1989, United Airlines Flight 232 departed Denver, Colorado on what was expected to be a routine flight to Chicago. The aircraft was a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, one of the largest and most advanced wide-body airliners of its era. On board were 285 passengers and 11 crew members. Everything appeared completely normal as the aircraft climbed to its cruising altitude of 37,000 feet above the American Midwest. Inside the cockpit, Captain Alfred Haynes, First Officer William Records, and Flight Engineer Dudley Dworak monitored the aircraft's systems while enjoying a smooth flight. Behind them, the tail-mounted General Electric CF6 engine was operating normally, producing thousands of pounds of thrust. Like every modern airliner, the DC-10 relied on multiple backup systems designed to handle equipment failures safely. But at exactly 3:16 in the afternoon, everything changed in a fraction of a second. Deep inside the tail engine, a microscopic manufacturing defect that had existed since the engine was built finally reached its breaking point. The titanium fan disc, rotating at thousands of revolutions per minute, suddenly fractured. The enormous forces released inside the engine caused a catastrophic uncontained engine failure. High-energy metal fragments burst outward with incredible speed, destroying surrounding systems. The explosion itself was not what doomed the aircraft. The flying debris severed all three independent hydraulic systems running through the tail section. Engineers had believed such a complete hydraulic loss was virtually impossible. Without hydraulic pressure, the elevators, rudder, ailerons, and most flight controls no longer responded to the pilot's commands. Inside the cockpit, warning lights illuminated almost instantly. The control column suddenly felt unusually light, and the crew quickly realized the aircraft was no longer responding normally. Every checklist they knew assumed at least one hydraulic system would remain available. None existed for losing all three simultaneously because no one believed it could ever happen. As the DC-10 continued across the Iowa sky, it slowly began rolling and pitching on its own. The aircraft still had power from its two wing-mounted engines, but nearly every primary flight control surface had become useless. It was now one of the most difficult emergencies ever faced by an airline crew. Captain Haynes remained remarkably calm. Rather than panic, the crew immediately focused on understanding what control, if any, still remained. Every instrument was examined. Every possibility was discussed. The pilots carefully tested the controls, hoping for even a small response. Then they noticed something unexpected. Although the flight controls no longer worked, changing engine thrust still affected the aircraft's direction. Increasing power on one wing engine while reducing power on the other created a slow turning motion. It was crude, imprecise, and extremely difficult, but it offered the crew a tiny chance of guiding the aircraft. This technique, known as differential thrust, had never been taught as a method for flying a completely uncontrollable passenger jet. The pilots began learning it in real time, while controlling a 180-ton aircraft carrying nearly 300 people. Every adjustment required patience. Every correction took several seconds before the aircraft responded. The DC-10 moved with enormous inertia, drifting slowly through the sky as the crew worked together with extraordinary discipline. Against all expectations, they had discovered the only remaining way to fly an aircraft that had effectively lost its steering. With only engine thrust controlling the aircraft, the crew faced an almost impossible task. Every turn was delayed, every descent difficult to predict, and every adjustment required perfect coordination. The DC-10 could no longer be flown normally. Instead, it had to be guided using careful changes in power between the two remaining wing engines. Air traffic control quickly understood the seriousness of the situation and cleared all surrounding airspace. The nearest suitable airport was Sioux Gateway Airport in Sioux City, Iowa. Emergency crews assembled along the runway, while firefighters, medical teams, and airport personnel prepared for an arrival unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Inside the cabin, flight attendants calmly prepared passengers for an emergency landing. Safety instructions were repeated, seatbelts were checked, and everyone was asked to brace. Despite the uncertainty, the cabin crew remained remarkably composed, helping passengers stay as calm as possible. At this critical moment, another experienced pilot on board, Captain Dennis Fitch, volunteered to assist in the cockpit. Working alongside Captain Haynes, First Officer Records, and Flight Engineer Dudley, the four men formed an extraordinary team. One pilot monitored altitude, another managed engine thrust, another handled communications, while another watched the aircraft's constantly changing attitude. Every decision depended on precise coordination. The airport finally appeared ahead. Using only differential thrust, the crew slowly aligned the massive DC-10 toward the runway. The aircraft continued to oscillate from side to side, making the approach extremely unstable. Each throttle movement produced only a delayed response, leaving almost no margin for error. The pilots knew they could not perform a normal landing. Their only objective was to reach the runway under as much control as possible. As the aircraft descended through the final few hundred feet, the nose began drifting again. Captain Haynes and Dennis Fitch carefully adjusted engine power, fighting to keep the aircraft pointed toward the runway. The landing gear was down, but without hydraulic controls, there was no precise way to stabilize the descent. Moments later, the DC-10 reached the runway. The aircraft touched down at high speed with significant rolling motion. The landing gear absorbed enormous forces as the crew struggled to maintain direction.
Despite the violent impact, rescue teams immediately responded, reaching the aircraft within moments. Firefighters and emergency personnel moved quickly, while survivors were evacuated.